Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Tuesday Tea Time. I'm here at home with Atlas and Ocasio over there. It's hard to believe I was in New Zealand just a week ago. I'm moving a little bit slowly, as I usually do my first week home. It takes me a little while to get acclimated and settled into my own time zone. I don't suffer from jet lag too much, but there's something about coming home that just lets you be a little bit peaceful. So I'm going to go ahead and dive right in. I know a lot of people watch this after the fact, so I'll just go ahead and get into the main topic here. Hey, Del. Welcome to Tea Time. I have been thinking a lot about social pressure in herds. And what's interesting about this is I notice as I'm traveling that the social pressure in herds, and what I mean by social pressure is the pressure for horses to be like each other, to stand in parallel lines, to agree on what they're paying attention to work together. So social pressure is just, what does it take to get that happening? What does it take to get the horses working together as a team? And so I've been thinking about this a lot, and what I've noticed as I travel around the world is that a lot of horses in very beautiful, low stress environments don't seem to have a lot of herd cohesion. They don't have a lot of parallel lines. Now, this isn't all, of course. This is just something I've noticed sort of as a trend as I travel around the world. I find that there has to be some amount of environmental pressure to cause social pressure. And yeah, Joe, I've got the boys here. Atlas is here, and Ocasio's up there. Ari and Sassafras are up at the barn. So social pressure, I think, is really important in a herd. It bonds the herd together. It develops this cohesion where they think as one instead of thinking as many individuals. But I find it takes some sort of environmental pressure before horses are motivated to have social pressure. And so what we have out here in the pasture is Atlas is hanging out with me. Ocasio's way over there. The other two horses are up at the barn. The other two are up at my house. Everybody's really spread out. There's not a lot of tight-knit cohesion in my herd. And that's interesting because I've spent a huge amount of time developing low-stress habits in my horses. Developing a kind of an emotional fitness that keeps their stress levels very low, and for the most part they feel relatively unaffected by environmental pressures. Now, obviously, if all the horses from the neighbor's farm get out, that will be an environmental pressure that would probably drive them together. They would bond together and there would be a cohesion all of a sudden. Same thing, if the wind is whipping, they're all going to turn their tails the same direction and put their butts to the wind. That's an environmental pressure that pushes them all to be like each other. So I've been thinking about this a lot, how we want horses to have friends and we want them to feel good together. But interestingly, the lower stress they have and the more emotionally fit they are, the more comfortable they get with being alone and not really needing their herd mates. And while that's wonderful for those of us that worry about separation anxiety, I do sort of wonder about the long-term effects about it. Now, I have all boys in my herd. I have no girls, so I have a feeling it would change if I had mares. Mares, I think, have a greater sensitivity, hey Atlas, to environmental pressures. The boys are a little bit more big, strong, and independent, I find, whereas the mares are going to be a little bit more sensitive to their environmental pressures and making sure that everyone stays safe. So what I see when horses feel an environmental pressure, whether it's the wind wind or a storm coming in, or not enough food, or the neighbor's horse is moving too much, or anything that brings on an abnormal amount of concern. That's where you'll see the horses asking each other to pay attention more. And they will do this hopefully first by demonstrating it. So one of them will look up and look around, and they hope the others copy it. If others do not copy it, it will start driving actions. And what that means is it will start to push everybody in the herd. It will start to push them in arcs and turns and circles. And what happens on those arcs and turns and circles is the horses have to see the world from many different angles. And very often when we see one horse pushing another, we think they're a bully, or we think that they are just mean, or maybe they're too dominant. I actually see this really differently. I see that as the horse that is feeling an environmental pressure. Something about their environment is overwhelming to them, or they're perhaps just not very emotionally fit, so a lot of life is overwhelming to them. And what they're going to do is they're going to push their herd around until the herd has some cohesion. They have some bonding together. They'll look in the same direction. They'll be interested in the same things. They will change focus more often to keep track of all the things that might be dangerous in the world around them. When you have that kind of herd cohesion, everybody will feel like they understand each other better. And I think ultimately that's going to be healthier for the herd. So I'm at an interesting sort of conundrum here. I've worked so hard, and I will continue to work so hard, to help my horses have really low stress levels. And as you can see here, Atlas is just over my shoulder, sleeping in the sun. I love to see him like this. Not much bothers Atlas anymore. Environmentally, he's very strong. He doesn't have the upheavals that he used to have. And I'm really proud of him. I'm really proud of him for developing such a strong emotional fitness. I would say that not many of my horses push Atlas to do anything other than what he's doing. He's kind of a difficult horse to push. He's kind of independent, and he's pretty relaxed. Ocasio over there, let's see if we can see him in the camera. Yep, there he is up by the barn. He gets pushed a lot. And interestingly, if he is not pushed, he will push. So he is always in a push-pull relationship. He has a lot more environmental concerns and environmental pressures than my other horses. And so as I work with him, it will be interesting to see if he starts having less and less desire to push the other horses as he becomes more brave and confident within himself. But there's some sort of a happy medium here, because I want to feel like my horses have friends. So to some extent, there needs to be some sort of environmental pressure that will motivate them to bond with each other. And I've heard this from a couple of different sources, actually. When there's all the food they want, all the friends they want, all the space they want, all their needs are filled, they don't tend to bond tightly together. You'll see them spread way far out across the fields. Now, less so with the mares than with the boys. And I think that's just because mares are a little bit more sensitive to the danger of being alone genetically than the boys are going to be. Now, every situation, of course, is unique. So I can't speak to every situation. But this is what I'm thinking about a little bit. If we want our horses to be really socially healthy, there's two parts to this, in my opinion. One, they offer to pay more attention in ways that make their friends feel good. They offer to go in parallel lines with their friends without needing any pressure. And then two, their friends know how to put pressure on them to line up in parallel lines, to pay more attention, to use all five senses in a way that make them happy. I'm starting to think that if you stray too far to the relaxation side of the spectrum, you just end up with horses like this one over my shoulder here, pretty happy to sleep all the time. And while that's beautiful, I think there's a balance to be struck where we need a little pressure in their life too. We need just enough pressure that they feel motivated to bond with and think about somebody other than themselves. So how do we go about doing that in a type of training like I do with no tools? That's what I'm exploring, and I'm building on it all the time. It's really, really interesting watching. We're introducing two new Mustangs into the herd this week. So Zatar and Sassafras are the two new Mustangs, and they're coming in here with Atlas and Ocasio and Ari and Raz. And if you guys are interested in seeing that, that's going to show some social pressures as we introduce new herd mates together. And I've put up a couple of videos on my Patreon page about how I do that, how I integrate new horses together, how I help them navigate the social pressures of getting new friends that they haven't met before. So if you're interested in that, check out the Patreon Taming Wilds page. And I'm going to keep thinking about this. I don't know that I have any answers yet, but I think there is some balance to be made between horses that are very, very relaxed, like the one over my shoulder, nice example, Atlas, and horses that can use pressure in a good way to motivate bonding. Del says, when the toddler gets too much sleep, it's bad. I've been waking him up more and it's helping. Thank you. Yeah, Del, that's a really interesting thing. We do want them to sleep. We do want them to rest. We do want them to relax. But there is a thing that happens where they don't feel very socially motivated when they are this relaxed. And so it's the art of waking up and re-engaging and developing bonds with others that help them feel like they're part of a group and they're not all by themselves. So those are my thoughts for today. I will keep the experiments going. If you want to see a little bit about herd integration, I've posted some videos up on my Patreon page, and we'll be posting more in the next couple of weeks as I get these two new Mustangs integrated into my herd. And I'll keep letting you know what I figure out about this balance between calm, peaceful, relaxed, sleepy horses that have very low stress levels and maybe a little bit of stress, just the right amount of stress to help them bond, connect, and form herds in the way they're supposed to. Thank you guys for joining me. Have a wonderful day. I will be back next Tuesday.